We all know Clark County is home to one of the most famous 4-mile stretches of road in the world. The glitz, the glamour, the gaming, and of course the showgirls. But it does tend to overshadow the entertainment that takes place off the strip. As we celebrate our centennial, we take a look back at our county's rich culture, and we start with a little down-home fun.
Maytime is El Dorado time in Las Vegas. Residents and visitors alike go Western in celebration of the annual event.
This was something that everybody came into, and anybody who grew up here remembers going to El Dorado. They remember when they were in the parade. They remember El Dorado Village, going to the rodeo and all of that.
Each of the floats is the result of months of patient planning, and they are not revealed until the day of the parade.
El Dorado main part was over behind where the post office is now, off of Stewart Street. And they had a racetrack out there, and that was kind of the center for the first El Dorado.
El Dorado began in the 30s. The whole idea was just to bring people here. It was a conscious effort to create an event that would bring tourists into Las Vegas and into Clark County. That was the background of it. It became a huge community celebration as well, but the primary reason that it got started was for tourist potential.
In 1935, the Boulder Dam was just completed, and 125,000 visitors flocked to Las Vegas in the first 4 months alone. That same year, to keep the tourists coming, the Elks Lodge started El Dorado Days. Playing on the image of the old Wild West, the 4-day party included kangaroo courts, El Dorado queens, parades, and plenty of shootouts. And there were always plenty of stars checking out the action.
In the early days, the Roy Rogers, I think Bing Crosby was here. In terms of the 30s, basically, all the big names would end up coming and they'd ride on floats or they'd just be here for it. There was a lot of tie between Hollywood and Las Vegas and Clark County even then.
El Dorado was so popular, eventually it found its way to the big screen. In 1946, Roy Rogers, Dale Evans, and Gabby Hayes filmed a movie right here titled, you guessed it, El Dorado. But the title did need some tweaking, as it was a little risque for Hollywood standards.
El Dorado originally was Hell with 2 L's, El Dorado. When Roy Rogers and Dale Evans did a movie about El Dorado, based around El Dorado, called El Dorado, they had to drop one of the L's because you couldn't say hell in a movie title.
Censorship aside, there are plenty of people that will tell you in May, it sure was as hot as you know what.
One of the folks I talked to said they always parked in front of the Orange Rufus. Now, Orange Rufus was a drink, and it was a soda parlor, and they would stop right there. They would bring down their chairs the night before. They would chain them to one of the parking meters, and they would come out, and they liked the Orange Rufus because they had an open front and the air conditioning would come out and keep them cool while the parade was going by.
For folks in the parade, staying cool wasn't as easy.
This is a picture of my cousin Colleen, and she's wearing her costume for the El Dorado parade. We made them out of crepe paper, and my mother made this. Well, as we marched up the street, it would get hotter and hotter, and as little children we would sweat more and more, and of course the paper would fade and get wet and run down our legs. So as soon as we got to the end of the parade, we didn't care about the hairdos, we didn't care about the parade, we didn't care about anything. They would simply dump ice water on us to cool us down.
Everybody was in there and enthusiastic, and they jumped in like Jim Cashman when they needed something down at Cashman Field. That's where they had their rodeos and things. He would send a brand new Caterpillar down there at no charge to do whatever work they had to do. And I remember his son and I, he'd send us down there, and we got to drive an old Buick they had a pickup made out of, and so we'd go down there and volunteer just so we could drive that old Buick around the El Dorado grounds.
As the county embraced our Wild West past, they also welcomed high culture. The year was 1937. The inaugural season for the Community Concert Association was underway.
They had a huge success. They had their first season, 20% of the entire population subscribed, which was about 600 people. They started off in, I believe, in the War Memorial Building, which was where City Hall is now. Then they moved to one of the LDS ward buildings, And then when the new old Las Vegas High School Theater was built in the early 50s, they were there for many years. And then finally ended up at Ham Hall.
The association brought in the best classical musicians, dancers, and singers from all over the world before finally disbanding in 2001. But the Community Concert Association helped set the stage for more performing arts in the Valley. In 1948, the county was about to get their very first professional theater company. It was the Birdcage Theater, located in the second hotel on the Strip, the Last Frontier.
They advertised themselves as the first professional stock company in Las Vegas. The Birdcage Theater was organized by Richard Stadelman's wife, and Richard Stadelman was the architect who built the Flamingo. And in 1948 was their inaugural season. The tickets were $19.44 for the season ticket of 6 plays, so for about $3 you could see a play with professional actors.
The final curtain came down on the Birdcage in the 50s, and their home, the Last Frontier, after undergoing a number of facelifts and several name changes, took its final bow in 2007. After the Birdcage closed, the county was left with just one theater company. It was the Birdcage's rival and predecessor, the Las Vegas Little Theater.
That was established in 1938, and Paul Raleigh, who was a lawyer and very colorful character who had many ties to Hollywood, he was one of the founders and very enthusiastic promoter and sustainer of the Las Vegas Little Theater. They went for many years, and then they had to reorganize, but there was always something there. One thing they did every year was they started performing the classic play The Drunkard during El Dorado, which was a huge hit, and everybody loved that.
In 1942, the theater performed Maxwell Anderson's Eve of St. Mark. Many soldiers from the Las Vegas Gunnery School pulled double duty as cast members for that play. Shortly after, many of those same soldiers would be off to fight in World War II. It was the war that halted theatrical activities in Las Vegas. But as they say, the show must go on, and the performing arts picked up steam after the war. The spotlight eventually turned towards kids. The magic of children's theater would cast its spell over the valley with the Rainbow Company. It was the vision of two women with big dreams. Patricia Marchese with the Cultural Affairs Department and a young grad student, Jody Johnston, daughter of famous comedian Toady Fields, brought the magic of children's theater to life in 1976.
Pat contacted Jody and said, you know, I'm thinking we have these new art centers. They had just converted Reed Whipple Center to an art center, and they were building this one. Let's offer some drama classes. People say there's nothing for kids to do in Las Vegas. Let's offer some drama classes. So Jody came in fresh out of UNLV with her master's degree, and she started teaching drama classes.
The classes were so popular that after just 4 months, a show was in the works and the Rainbow Company was born. And 30 years later, and many national awards under their belt, the company is still wowing crowds.
There was a need for things for kids to do as far as culture goes. It offers a very firm foundation, arts foundation, for young people who want to participate in the art form.
From 7 to 18 until I graduated high school, I was involved with the Rainbow Company.
If Christy wasn't in the show, like here playing Cinderella, she was working on the show, learning all facets of theater.
Completely healthy, fun, family-oriented, cultural, artistic event that's happening that you're a part of all of a sudden. And you learn teamwork, you have to rely on each other. So all those good values come out of it. If people in Las Vegas say that there's no culture, they're really just not looking.
One Valley woman wasn't looking for culture, she brought it with her. Nancy Housel's pirouetted her way across the globe, finally landing at the Tropicana's Folies Bergère in 1966. Just 6 years later, the dancing dynamo started what would become the renowned Nevada Ballet Theater.
I'm really amazed that we're still here. I'm telling you, can you imagine a ballet company in a gaming town? it didn't quite fit.
Not only are they still around, they're a leading force in the performing arts in Southern Nevada. And it all started after Nancy attended a ballet at UNLV that used performers from the Strip. With a shoestring budget, she then recruited dancers off the Strip and started her own troupe. Within 2 years, they became a professional company. And today, those dancers come from all over the world.
Now we have them from Turkey, China, we've had Koreans, Russians, we have Armenia, we have a lot from the United States, but this is an international company.
The company will soon be housed in a world-class $475 million performing arts center. The Smith Center for the Performing Arts, slated to open in 2012, will be located in downtown's 61-acre Union Park. The city donated the land, and together the county and city approved a car rental tax to help fund the building. And while the Smith Center comes with a hefty price tag, the value for the community is priceless.
I think it gives a message that we've matured. Will become a complete city because we're one of the last in North America that doesn't have a performing arts center. But you know, that's easy to understand. You have all those fantastic theaters on the Strip.
Theaters on the Strip, theaters off the Strip, a lot of choices, sometimes too many.
The line between art and entertainment here is about as blurred as it could get. And all of that puts the community arts in a strange position. Nevada Ballet Theater grew right out of the performances on the Strip. That's a good example of the intertwining of entertainment and the arts here.
There would be more groups to come that got their roots performing on the Strip. Like the Las Vegas Jazz Society. Las Vegas local and jazz great Monk Montgomery made it happen.
There were a group of people led by Monk who said, you know what? Let's have a society where we can put on music and pay the musicians.
The year was 1975, and it was a good time to be a musician here in the county. A good gig was around every corner.
We had huge orchestras here and tremendous string sections in the major hotels. And the big stars who came here, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, would compete with each other to see who would have the most string players. It was a wonderful world for musicians here.
As soon as I came in 1967, and the town was thriving. Every hotel, casino had a house band of several pieces. They had lounge work. For instance, Vic Damone worked here 20 weeks a year in the lounge with a 20-piece band. And Jerry Vale worked here another 20 weeks a year in the lounges with 17-piece bands, sometimes augmented by strings. And even Kim sisters were always backed by a substantially sized combo.
In the midst of all these musicians, jazz was notably absent from the big showrooms and lounges. The Jazz Society's mission was to support their art form and bring it to the community. But in the late 80s, the good times for musicians in the county would hit a rough note.
When they fired us, I was mad as hell, I'll tell you that.
In 1989, after 4 decades of steady work, Fred Holler, instead of hitting the high notes, was hitting the pavement, striking against the Hotel Association's move to go to taped music.
It was devastating. There was two relief bands plus 4 or 5 hotels. It just went down. Yeah, it was horrible.
So we were replaced by tape, and that seriously impacted the Las Vegas economy. Musicians who had worked steadily for years, suddenly out of work, never to reclaim that work. It was never going to be replaced.
For Fred, it's not just the musicians who got a raw deal, but the audience as well.
You would see an orchestra on stage. This is part of the charisma. This is part of the magic. When you see a full orchestra and somebody that really is great, you got something. You got your money's worth.
While many showrooms silenced musicians, schools around the valley are proudly tooting their own horns, promoting the love of music while strengthening the culture of Clark County.
1 and 2 and 3 and play and.
Kimberly Anderson knows a thing or two about music. She's an accomplished opera singer and cellist. She also knows the importance of exposing kids to music in school.
Since I've been here, I've had 2 student teachers that went to school here for strings. They were in this program. And they came back, one violist, one cellist, and one has already been a student teacher, one is getting ready to do his student teaching in the fall. And now they're going to be music teachers like me and touch approximately 160 to 240 kids' lives a year. So that's a huge impact on the arts in our community. Not to mention all of the students that go on, graduate, continue to play. There are a lot of students that have graduated from Clark County, not just Greenspun, that are in the Henderson Symphony, which used to rehearse here at Greenspun. And so they go on, and even though they're not professional musicians, they still play their instrument, they still love it, they're still part of the community, and that music is marvelous because it touches the lives of all the people in Henderson.
Kimberly's kids performed at the Clark County School District Orchestra Festival. It's kind of a big deal, and they did really well. But whether their career stops here or they go on to play professionally, Kimberly knows she helped create little patrons of the arts.
I love to call them arts consumers, which means that they're buying subscriptions to the Las Vegas Philharmonic, and they're going to concerts, they're going to the arts community, and they're spending their money giving back to the arts.
Charles Vanda was one man who knew how to give to the arts. The Las Vegas socialites started the Charles Vanda Master Series in 1976. He was a colorful character with a fascinating past that included stints with Army intelligence during the war and producing radio shows for CBS.
Little trivia for you, Charles was the producer the night that Orson Welles did the famous War of the Worlds Mercury Radio Theater in the Air for CBS that scared the wits out of 3/4 of the United States on Halloween, I think it was 1938.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars.
Although Vanda's first attempt at bringing a professional orchestra here wasn't as frightening as War of the Worlds, it was still pretty hard to take.
So Charles tried to present Zubin Mehta and the Israel Philharmonic over at the Aladdin Theater. As the story goes, Zubin Mehta was horrified by the acoustics at the Aladdin Theater and told the audience before he lifted his baton that this was going to be the worst night of music that they'd ever heard, and that the hall was an abomination, and that, you know, Las Vegas should be embarrassed about this.
Vanda turned away from the Aladdin and focused on building the Artemis Ham Concert Hall. The first acoustic-friendly Master Series took place in 1976, and it's been going strong ever since.
If you go through the litany of classical music, I mean, some of those people have performed here, you know, the Yehudi Menuhins, the Itzhak Perlmans, the Yo-Yo Ma. I could go on. One of my favorite characters is Itzhak Perlman. Itzhak's been here 6 times now, and he is a wonderful human being. He always comes in January, you know, he's kind of a snowbird in that regard. And he was playing a gig up in Seattle. And in Seattle, they had a rare freak blizzard. You know, the airlines and the planes were all delayed. And he got here literally 3 hours before the show. The airline lost his luggage, and he literally had to go on stage in what he was wearing, which was denim blue jeans and a blue work shirt and cowboy boots.
For over 30 years, the Master Series filled Ham Hall with beautiful music. But some venues found their groove outdoors. The popular Jazz in the Park is an annual event put on by Clark County's Cultural Department. But way back when they first started, finding places to put on concerts was a problem.
My job at that time was to put on concerts, but we had no venue. So I was stationed over at Winchester Center, and there was a gym. And so what I did was I would rent a portable stage, bring in folding chairs, rent drapes, and just kind of create a nice little theater in a gym with the basketball hoops still up and smelling of sweat socks.
Clark County's Cultural Department kicked off in 1988. One of the goals back then was to take cultural events to the rural areas of the community.
We would take classical music on the road, and sometimes it didn't go over that well, and we'd have more people in the performing side than in the audience, but we started gradually kind of doing some, you know, a little outreach and ask people what they liked. And so we'd take a bluegrass band to Sandy Valley, and up in the Overton area we did have more classical music because their music teachers out there really promoted that for the children. So that was something that I did for quite a while, and then gradually we, you know, there's really, some of the areas have their own concerts now, especially up in the Moapa Valley area.
The county has come a long way since those first concerts, putting on 40 to 50 shows a year, ranging from jazz at Winchester to Renaissance festivals. But it's always fun to recall the early years.
My favorite memory is Laura Spitzer, who is a really wonderful concert pianist, and she used to take her grand piano on the road to all the little rural towns in Nevada. And she came and performed in her beautiful drip-dry concert gown, which she used to wash in the restroom and then hang up to dry. And then she'd get on the stage and perform beautiful, beautiful classical music in the Winchester Gym. And of course now they have a very wonderful little theater over there, but
That's how it got started.
yeah, the pioneering years.
The beautiful music of the Las Vegas Symphony picked their players from the Las Vegas Strip. They reorganized in 1998 as a Las Vegas Philharmonic and have been a force to be reckoned with ever since.
Our concerts are sold out regularly. The place is packed with people who are screaming like it's a rock concert, which does not happen in every city, not even in bigger and allegedly more sophisticated cities.
The interesting thing about the beginning of the Philharmonic was it was a real risk. No one really knew how well the city and the residents would embrace the concept of having a resident orchestra.
In May of 1999, they would get their answer.
We were thinking if we could get 1,000 people to turn out, we would be a success. Over 1,600 people came to that concert, almost filling Artemis Ham Concert Hall. It was a real testament to the interest and the need that the Philharmonic would serve years later. With that success, they then embarked on a full season that had 5 concerts, every one of them well attended, and every year since then, audiences have grown so that the concert hall is filled to capacity on most occasions.
So now that the county is on board with performing arts, how is our culture viewed by outsiders?
I had a couple people when I said we were going to come and I was going to be able to take over this position, and they said, "You're kidding me. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to be doing concerts with, you know, showgirls with tassels and in the middle of a smoky casino." And I think people don't understand the town when they say that.
It's a misconception that performers feel will be silenced with the opening of the Smith Center. The Las Vegas Philharmonic will be the second group to call this place home.
The Smith Center is going to garner a huge amount of attention nationally and internationally because of the kind of facility that it is going to be, the kind of quality of facility that it's going to be. And then when you combine our plans for the Philharmonic and you put them in this magnificent hall, I think it's going to change the picture drastically. It's going to become a sort of if you build it, they'll come phenomenon.
And that's a phrase this town knows well. In just 100 years, we built a county like no other, attracting millions of people a year with no signs of slowing down.
Look at a city like New York, Philadelphia, even Miami. After 100 years, how far had they actually come? Clark County has grown faster, farther, and more worldwide and more cosmopolitan in 100 years than any other municipality and any other metropolitan area in the country, maybe even the world. I think that's something for the residents of Clark County to be proud of.
If you want to learn more about cultural events going on in our county, all you have to do is log on to our website at accessclarkcounty.com. And don't forget to join us next time as we leap back and look forward at another 100 years of Clark County history.